And so today, I hope we will all take just a moment and remember Oliver Hazard Perry and to reflect on how differently our world would have turned out were it not for his actions. I thank the Chair, I yield the floor, and I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.
Madam President.
Senator from Maine.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to a period of morning business with Senators.
Senate is in a quorum call.
I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be rescinded.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to a period of morning business with Senators permitted to speak for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nomination, calendar number 335, that the nomination be confirmed, the motion to reconsider to be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, that no further motions be in order on the nomination, that any related statements be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate then resume legislative session.
Without objection.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nominations, calendar 336 and 337, that the nominations be confirmed en bloc, the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, that no further motions be in order to any of the nominations, that any related statements be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate then resume legislative session.
Without objection.
Madam President, I understand that there are 4 bills at the desk, and I ask for their first reading en bloc.
The clerk will read the bill for the first time.
S-1513, a bill to amend the Helium Act to complete the privatization of the Federal Helium Reserve and so forth and for other purposes. S-1514, a bill to save coal jobs and for other purposes. H.R. 2009, an act to prohibit the Secretary of the Treasury from enforcing the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act and so forth. H.R. 2775, an act to condition the provision of premium and cost-sharing subsidies under the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act and so forth and for other purposes.
Madam President, I now ask for a second reading en bloc, and I object to my own request en bloc.
Objection having been heard. The bill will be read for the second time on the next legislative day.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the appointment at the desk appear separately in the record as if made by the Chair.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business today, it adjourn until 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday, September 18th, 2013, and that following the prayer and pledge, the morning hour be deemed expired, the Journal of Proceedings be approved to date, and the time for the 2 leaders be reserved for their use later in the day. That following any leader remarks, the Senate be in a period of morning business for 1 hour, with Senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each, with the time equally divided and controlled between the 2 leaders or their designees, with the Republicans controlling the first half and the majority controlling the final half. And that following morning business, the Senate resume consideration of S-1392, the Energy Savings and Industrial Competitiveness Act.
Without objection.
If there's no further business to come before the Senate, I ask that it adjourn under the previous order.
Senate stands adjourned until 9:30 a.m. tomorrow.
Senators continued work today on an energy efficiency bill. Bill managers are negotiating off the floor over which amendments to allow on the floor for a vote. One of the amendments standing by is offered by Louisiana Republican David Vitter to require that certain federal workers pay their entire health insurance costs under the health care law. Some tweets have been exchanged on that amendment. Democratic leader Harry Reid pointed out today on the Senate floor that Senator Vitter has had the government pay a portion of his health insurance for years and says in a tweet, "Here's why I'm upset about the partisan games that Republicans are playing with Obamacare," and directs people to that video, which you'll also be able to find on C-SPAN's video library. Senator Vitter reacted with a tweet saying, "Senator Reid, newsflash, you gave America Obamacare. Are you still reading it with Nancy Pelosi to find out what's in it?" The flag flying above the Capitol is at half-staff today in honor of the victims of the Washington, D.C. Navy Yard shooting. 12 Navy Yard workers were killed and 8 wounded. Several members of Congress have been speaking today about what Senator Reid called the worst loss of life in the Capital Region since 9/11. We're going to show you a number of those comments. We begin with the Senate chaplain.